Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the event. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Refuerzo. I am the Chief Program Officer at Boots to Books, and I am so super excited today to be joined by Adam Braatz. We are going to discuss LinkedIn. We're going to talk about networking. We're going to talk about how to use LinkedIn effectively, both prior to your transition and after you transition. Now, a couple of things for housekeeping here. This event is being recorded. It will be hosted on my YouTube channel, and it will also be hosted on the Boots to Books Masterclass inside of the Networking and Social tab. Now, the other thing that I want to make sure and cover is this isn't just for military. This kind of covers a lot of the stuff that is basic to every single person that's on LinkedIn. Now, we are going to focus today on the military aspect as well. Um, but the one thing that I would also like to caveat with that is it's not just active duties, it is also for our military spouses. So, without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Adam. Adam, give us a little bit about yourself.
Wow. Yeah, no problem. Hey, first, thanks for having me. I love the intro. That's we were just talking about Restream and how cool it is. The whole this whole thing is pretty snazzy. I may have to check Restream out. Yeah, so I'm an Air Force veteran. I served from 2008 to the end of 15, almost a full 8 years. Started out under the Greater Wing of Air Force Public Affairs. And then in my second half, I was an instructor, a military training instructor down at BMT, the Air Force Basic Military Training. After I got out, I worked pretty much exclusively in the nonprofit world, mostly in veteran advocacy, but have recently transitioned to arts, and creative economy advocacy.
Awesome. Good deal. So, a lot of experience with that PR side of the house. So, that this must have been like something natural for you, right?
The which part?
LinkedIn in general, like, just being able to hop on. So I guess it kinda leads to the first question is, how did you use LinkedIn while you were still active duty?
I didn't, and that's the thing. That's
Ah,
something that I make it a point to try to evangelize for, uh, both through my book and on LinkedIn and pretty much everywhere to anyone who will listen and at seminars and whatnot all over the country is that this is a really integral part of your transition. It is just another tool in your toolbox, but it's really it's a workhorse tool in your toolbox. I didn't get started until years after I had transitioned, and I was not a believer. I thought that LinkedIn was another just another social network. I was like, I don't need another Facebook in my life that's just pretending to be more businessy. And I remember I even I took a screen cap of this. Um, I made a post on Facebook that was like, "Hey, should I get on this LinkedIn thing?" While I'm thinking about transitioning. Before I transitioned, everybody said yes, and I didn't do it.
mm,
But then after I started getting into it a little bit, I had a mentor that really talked me through it. His name's Wayne Breitbarth. He's the author of The Power Formula for LinkedIn Success. He actually talked me through it, and I went to some of his seminars, and like I learned how incredibly powerful it is. It's not just another Facebook or another social network. It does have aspects that are social media-esque to it, but its huge leverage point is it's in its database features and its search features. It's the
mm.
largest professional database on the planet, and second place isn't even close. And once I understood that, I was like, man, I could have benefited a lot from doing this, years before I got out of the service. And that's something that I really, like I said, I try to evangelize for, um, to get people on the train, if only to get their profile set up and start slowly and deliberately building a network as they approach their transition, no matter how far away it is.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I had a very, very similar story. Mine actually goes back about 10 years ago. So I was still like halfway through my 20-year career. And there was, a senior chief that had come into the office. They were going through their own transition within, 6 months, and they were talking about LinkedIn. And, of course, I had no idea what that was, and I was admittedly, I was still very young as well. So, listening to that conversation, I'm like, "Oh, I'll give it a try." So, I started a LinkedIn account, but I left it completely blank, right? I spent about maybe 10 minutes, I put some stuff in there, left it, never touched it again for, probably another 8 years, and then when I tried to create my LinkedIn account, because I had forgotten I had done it, it said that I had already used my email. I'm like, "What is it talking about?" Of course, the account was locked, I couldn't get into it, and I used that as an example of personal branding prior to and personal branding after, and it had
Mm.
my name for because it still has my account on there. It still has my name on there. I really didn't take it serious until I was about 3 years out. I had a fellow chief at that point, very late in my career. They came in, they said, "Hey, I went through this transition course, and I need to start using LinkedIn, and all of you need to start using LinkedIn as well." At that point, really just kinda kicked off, and similar to your story, Adam, I have found USO Transition Program, and if you're not familiar with that, you absolutely need to hop on board in that bandwagon. USO does an amazing job of helping service members transition out of the military. This isn't a plug for them, but,
Is
I
that the
can tell you,
Pathfinder program? Is that what that's called?
USO Transitions.
Oh, it's called Transit. Okay,
Yep.
very cool.
Uh, Super amazing program. They actually had a LinkedIn mastery course that they were
Oh, of
putting on by the, ever talented Michael Quinn. If you're not
course.
familiar with him, uh, you must be living under a rock because he is probably one of the better, uh, LinkedIn personalities out there when it comes to the military transition space. But I got on board with one of his courses, started to learn a little bit more about LinkedIn, started to really dive into LinkedIn and pretty much removed all my other social medias that I was using because I wanted to find a job when I separated from the military. And I'll tell you, 3 years later, I am so glad that I kicked off that process early to start networking. Because I will tell you, every position that I've ever achieved post service has been directly related to a LinkedIn network connection.
Same here. And, I just see Bruce said in the chat, it used to be called USO Pathfinders, and now it's called USO Transitions.
Yep.
So we were talking about the same thing. Hi, Bruce. I like that guy.
Oh,
It
yeah, absolutely.
you know, I just wanted to add that, just having a LinkedIn account and having even a LinkedIn account with an optimized profile is not that's like one step in your journey. And, that's where I think a lot of people get hung up on. That's where they get stuck, and they end up saying LinkedIn doesn't work. They set up a profile, they believe that it's optimized, and then they wait for the job offers to roll in. Depending on your industry, some industries and disciplines, yeah, that's absolutely true. Some tech fields, you put in your certificates and your training, you'll have headhunters after you all day long. But that's not true for most industries. So having an optimized profile, having a complete profile, one that uh, shares all of your training and your certifications and your accomplishments and is polished and professional, that's one step. And there are a couple other steps that we all need to take, that in my industry in particular I needed to take, to be seen and to build that professional brand. Um, Brand being a word that a lot of people shy away from because they say, I don't want to be an influencer. Like, it's you'll wake up over like overnight and be internet famous or something. Like, that's easy to do. Um, but you do have a professional brand, whether you're on LinkedIn or not. You have a professional brand, um, and developing that, and then leveraging the search and database tools in LinkedIn are the other two really important steps, um, to having success there and finding employment, finding better employment.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing, and we'll kind of dive into some LinkedIn specifics here in just a moment, but
Mhm.
just to carry on that story is how you portray yourself on really any social media site is going to give you either a professional or unprofessional view from everyone else. And that's where LinkedIn can really help you. And you can leverage your skills and project that to those hiring managers, those recruiters, anyone that you're trying to connect with in your specific industry. I will tell you, most of my network connections that I had, I started off with people that I wanted to connect with in the real world, right? The outside world.
Mm,
And I was really heavily focused in the information technology and cybersecurity and project management space. Now, how do we do it though?
mm,
And that's really the big question everyone's wanting to know right now is, how do you start on LinkedIn? What are some things that you can do? What are the easy steps if you don't have a whole lot of time? Maybe you want to dive in head first, like I did, and spend
mm.
hours on your LinkedIn profile. What would you recommend, Adam?
Well, step one is to ensure you have a complete and polished profile. If you have sections that are incomplete, sections with broken links, sections where images don't populate, sections where you don't have a complete um, picture of your job duties, if it's not keyword optimized, and there are tons of resources and tools out there. That's step one. If you do not have a complete and polished profile, people who visit your profile will view you as incomplete and unpolished. All right, this is you putting your professional foot forward. Would you have broken links or typos or broken images on your resume or your or your cover letter? Probably not. So and your LinkedIn, there's an important distinction to make. Your LinkedIn profile is not a resume, and it has similar features to it, but it's a little bit more dynamic than that. But the concept that for both of them, you want to have the most polished presentation, the best foot forward that they definitely have in common. So that's step one. Step two is to start developing your network and growing your network. And you do that from the inside of your circle out. So the inside of your circle is your family and your friends that are on LinkedIn. You send them connection requests and you start growing that way. Then your professional acquaintances, your colleagues, your coworkers, people you have worked with in the past, people you work with and for now. And every time you send a connection request, it gives you the option of sending a customized message. Get in the habit of doing that for every one. Don't cut and paste because that leads to issues. Just take the time to write out, "Hi, Jane. Hi, John. Um, we're connected by blank, blank, blank. You're my uncle," or "I worked for you back at the 737th." I'd be honored if you joined my LinkedIn network. Signed, John or Jane. And you send that, and every single one you have a customized request, and then you start expanding from there. If you go up into your search bar at the top of LinkedIn, put your cursor in that search bar. Don't type anything. Press enter. It'll bring up the search feature, and then like second to the top bar, second third to the top bar, you see a button that says all filters. You click on that and it opens up a world of opportunity for you. Now that is LinkedIn's biggest leverage point. Let's say I'm stationed in San Antonio. That's where I exited. That's where I finished my military career. Let's say I live in San Antonio and I'm moving to Boston. Moving to Boston, Mass, and I want to work in IT. That's where I plan to go. So I'm going to search for IT professionals in Boston who are also Air Force veterans. Right? You can search by company, by previous company. You can add, if you want to do veterans, search for Air Force, Army, Marines, Navy, Coast Guard, Space Force, all of those things. And then when you enter that search, it'll show you all of the IT professional veterans who live in the greater Boston area. Every single one of those are logical connections for me. And I'm going to send a personalized connection request. This is a really important part when you're trying to expand your network, your professional network in areas and industries that you're hoping to reach out to. Don't ask for anything.
Mm.
You are entitled to nothing. You are owed nothing.
Yep.
Whether you're a military veteran or a military spouse or not, there's a ton of you out there. You are entitled to nothing. You are owed nothing. So approach it with humility and respect. Just reach out. Hi, John. Hi, Jane. See, you're a fellow Air Force vet. You're working in the Boston area in IT. I'm about to transition. I'm going to be, headed to the Boston area. I'd be honored if you join my LinkedIn network. That's it. You don't attach a resume, for goodness sake. That's super tacky. You
Yep.
don't put a link for somebody to
View my GitHub or
yeah, or like here's 30-minute, like click here to book 30 minutes of time with me to chat. Like, people don't have time for that. You
yep.
just you plant the seed of respectful connection, and then you do that and do that and do that ad nauseum until you have that 500 plus connections. And then you will see that as your network expands, you all of a sudden have a lot of people who a guy or gal who knows a guy or gal. And some of those people invariably will say, "Hey, let's grab a coffee when you're here." Maybe 5% of those people will say, "Hey, let's grab a coffee when you're here." Or, "Hey, we're hiring in our department. Can you send me a resume?" I mean, don't give them anything if they don't ask for it. But maybe 5% of the time they will. And that's how people get opportunities. And that's step 2 is expanding your network. And step 3 is being seen. So if your profile, you have network expansion. And your third step is a really important step that you cannot avoid, and that's creating content. That is sharing your story, your professional story, by creating original content. And a lot of people scoff at that. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about my personal life and blah blah blah." It's like, you're all on Facebook. Share stuff with your family. This is just sharing stuff. This is just sharing stuff about your professional world.
Yep.
That is it. And if you are in the military talking about your journey and your transition, being honest about questions you have, people will rally around you.
Absolutely.
And that's like a big conversation. Like, how do I create content? That's kind of a longer conversation. Happy to get into any of those 3 big steps, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of things to pull out of those simple 3 steps, right?
Yep.
When you really look at how do you do that? What are some actionable things?
Mm.
So, the first thing I'm going to point to is this. So, if you're not familiar, Adam has written a book specifically about this process. Now, there are tons of books that are out there. I myself have 4 different LinkedIn personal branding books. I will tell you, Adam is probably one of the best ones that's out there. And that's not just because I'm
That's
on the
nice.
chat
Thank
with him
you.
right now. We're having this video. It is an actual, genuine. I believe this is one of the better books that's out there. Actually, Bruce is in the chat right now. Bruce also has has a great book as well. If you're interested, his book
Yeah,
is on
Bruce is great.
Amazon. It's listed inside of, let me see here, let me make sure I get this right. There we go. So when I'm looking at resources, things that I can use, Adam's book is one of them. Now, for my own personal plug, when you go to my LinkedIn profile, you can actually go to my articles section. And inside of there, I put together an entire LinkedIn profile guide. It is built out step by step. How do you do things? Where do you put stuff? And I built it like a set of instructions. Admittedly, it's a lot better than IKEA instructions. You can actually follow them without any missteps. Additionally, with that, I also have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel as well. Short, 15-minute. You can go through, watch them while you're eating, or maybe you just want to listen to something on the drive in the car. You can just listen to those videos. Those will help supplement that LinkedIn article that I built. And to kind of help everyone today, what I'm actually going to do, and Adam, I'm going to thank you in advance for this. I have 4 of Adam's books that I will be sending out at the end of today's live stream. If you'd like to enter, all you need to do, message me on LinkedIn, say, would love one of the books. From there, I'm going to do a random draw later today. Once I select the 4, I'll mail them out to you. That's it. Super simple.
Boom. That's awesome.
Now,
Yeah,
let's. Oh, go ahead.
the book is the book is, I could write a book on writing a book, and that it really goes step by step through through each of those 3 pillars, through the profile, um, through the network development and the content creation. And I think the content creation part is the one that really hangs people up and makes people apprehensive. And I go in pretty granular detail, and the whole thing's in a very conversational, very, it doesn't read like stereo instructions. I wanted to have something that was, dare I say, even funny at a few points, and gave some real life examples. So that's kind of you to give those out, and I'm excited for all the winners.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of talked generally about a lot of stuff. Let's talk about some actual actionable things that you can do. So you talked about making sure you have a complete profile.
I got blurry all of a sudden.
Oh,
It's
you
the
got
audio.
blurry
Okay.
on. There we
Yeah.
go.
Oh, I'm good. Okay.
Oh, we got it. Technical difficulties. You have to have at least one during every live stream, and if you don't, then it's not a good stream. That's my rule of thumb.
I went all Sasquatch on everybody, because he's only photographed blurry. Yeah. That's a
Absolutely.
bad joke.
So when you look at LinkedIn,
Mhm.
how do you get found? And I will tell you that LinkedIn, if you're a super nerdy IT, it's built off of a SQL database, which
Mhm.
ultimately means that there are certain fields that are considered searchable.
Mhm.
You had talked about using that search function. You talked about using that all items on the far right hand side. And I will
Mhm.
tell you from LinkedIn's perspective, there are 13 specific fields that are considered searchable. Now, you can go down the rabbit hole and dive a little deeper if you'd like to, kind of give it a little more direction. But in general, there are 13 specific fields. And the biggest of those 13 are going to be your headline, your which is essentially your title. Right underneath your profile picture, you have that one section there, right? That's the primary item that gets searched first and foremost. After that, it's your about section. And that's a very small section. I believe the character limitation for that, I believe, is either 600 characters or 500 characters. I have to go back
Mhm.
and double check that number, but it's a very small amount of space that you can add. After that, it's your experience tab. And that experience tab is broken into 2 separate functions. One, it's the actual job title for the experience. And then it's the extra stuff that you talk about when you list your job. And one of the questions that I get asked most is, how much should I put in there?
Mm.
And the first answer I always tell people is, there's a character limit. You should go past your character limit as much as possible. Uh, and really, the reason why I say that is, you want to make sure that you are able to be found by your target audience. And when I teach LinkedIn, I always teach there's 2 different profiles, right? You have a profile where you have a job, you're not really looking for a job anymore. So you can kind of play around with what you want, right? You can put
Mm.
some fun stuff in your title, like, "Oh, I'm an amazing networking supporter," right? But you also have this separate LinkedIn profile, which is the job seeker profile. And that's where I think a lot of the service members and military spouses should look at. They should look at setting up their profile to be a job seeker profile. And what that really means is, there are certain keywords or SEO type words that need to be in your profile for recruiters to find you for the jobs you're looking for. Now, Adam, do you have any experience in that? Can you kind of talk about how to build a profile that looks like that?
Oh man. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things, and I wanted to back up just a hair. Um, that headline, that real estate, your title, that is the most important and most underutilized piece of real estate on an entire but across the board. When you set up a profile or you get a new gig or something, LinkedIn wants to default to saying in your headline, that you are blank at blank. You are executive director at company ABC Company Incorporated. Um, that that headline shows up next to everything you do. When somebody searches for you, they see your name, they see your picture, and they see your headline, which tells people more about you than your name and oftentimes your picture. When you make a comment, when you make an original post, when you do anything, that headline shows up next to what you do. So that first chunk of that headline, that real estate there, is out of this world. Is out of this world important.
Yeah.
And um, so a couple bits of advice on the headline. Yes, keyword optimization is important. If you work in an IT field and you have certifications, if you work in any field and you have certifications and licensure, that stuff holds a lot of weight. Recruiters are looking for people with certifications and licensure, even more than advanced degrees. Um, so yeah, make sure that they're in there because, like Michael said, it's searchable. It's you want that to be keyword optimized in your headline. But you also have an opportunity to talk about what you do and how you do it and where you do it and who you do it for, what you bring to the table. And it depends heavily on your industry. Uh, but I would say a good rule of thumb, a great place to start would be, it's kind of a cliche, but I help blank accomplish blank through or by blank. And that's a good baseline. And it really gets you to think about what it is that you bring to the table as a professional. Because if you can't answer what you do, who you do it for, and how you do it, or to what extent, it's going to be really hard for you to have that conversation with a recruiter or a potential employer when you actually make that transition. So I've asked people, so what do you do? How do you have, like if I had a dollar for every time I had a PMP certified, senior NCO who's transitioning and says, "Well, I just want to lead people. I just want to help people." It's like, great.
Yep.
Well, leader is not a job title in the civilian world. They don't
Oh,
just
yeah.
throw people, like in the military, they will put you in command of places where you don't have tactical like expertise in the thing that's being accomplished there. They just do that, because leadership is the job, right? They don't do that in the civilian world. So, you can't put I'm a leader. That doesn't really tell anybody anything. So you really have to niche down. Where do you like what industry do you want to work in? And what do you bring to the table that makes you attractive to potential employers? Right. And again, as a military veteran, as a retiree, as a whatever, you're not entitled to anything. And nobody's gonna throw a job at you because of that. There's so many of you, so how do you stand out? So start with I help blank accomplish blank through or by blank backslash or whatever sort of thing in between you want to do. Throw in your certifications. If you're PMP certified, if you're, whatever crazy IT lingo, I'm not familiar.
There's a million of them. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
just it looks like alphabet soup at the end of most people's headlines, but it's important that it's there.
Yep.
But start by talking about what it is that you bring to the table. Some people like using emojis. I say one judiciously placed, maybe at the end,
Mm.
um, but don't make it look like a billboard. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Absolutely. And man, there's so many things to unpack out of that. And honestly, you can spend hours doing conversations on LinkedIn, how to set stuff up. It's a rabbit hole you can absolutely go down. Eh,
Bruce's comment.
Oh
I
yeah,
love you, Bruce. Said my whole transition game plan was I'm a leader. Hire me.
absolutely.
Right.
And I find that when I have conversations with veterans and military spouses, I do volunteer work for Veterati, and I provide
Mm-hmm.
hour-long conversations, which if you're listening right now, you're not on Veterati, you absolutely need to get on there so you can schedule time, not just with me, but there are thousands of prior service members and civilian experts that have
I need to
actually
get on
volunteered
Veterati.
their time.
I need to get on there and be a mentor.
You need to.
Why
I
am
don't
I
know
not
why
on
you're not,
Veterati?
Adam. You need to hop on there.
What the heck is wrong? Why am I not? I don't get it.
There you go, action item for the day for you.
Yeah.
But
Bruce, it's funny. I was teaching a LinkedIn profile optimization seminar where we went like thing by thing
oh, yeah.
down at Scott Air Force Base, where I actually used to be stationed. And afterwards, I was doing one-on-ones with people. I just made myself available and did one-on-ones for like. There's a lot of interest. It was like a couple hours, I think, that like people just where I just tore like I felt bad after a while because people would, tell me what their LinkedIn name was, and I'd bring it up and I would just destroy their profile and tell them everything they needed to do. The worst out of all of them was like a flag officer. And
Oh,
he
man.
was 2 months from his transition. Arguably, of anyone I talked to that day, one of the most impressive, military resumes. No, I mean, you don't usually become a flag officer by accident. You have
Yeah.
a wide breadth of experience and education and, successes. You can't just stumble into that gig. Um, but man alive, his LinkedIn profile was the worst of the
Mhm.
ones that I saw, and he had the least idea of what he wanted to do afterwards. I said, "So what do you wanna do when you get out? What do you wanna do when you grow up?" And he was like, "Well, I just like leading people."
Yep.
"Okay, where would you like to lead people? Would you like to lead people over here or lead them over there?" And he's like, "Well, I was thinking, manufacturing." It's like, "Okay, have
Okay.
you ever worked in manufacturing?" "No." "Are there any parallels in your leadership?" He had
Mm.
no clue. And I was like, "Well, okay, so let's say in this manufacturing world, let's say they bring you in because they want you to lead the leaders who lead people on the factory floor. What sets you apart from a person who has 20 years of experience having worked them way up their way up in that industry? Why would they hire you over this person?" Crickets. He
Yep.
had no idea, and I'm not saying that he wouldn't have been a valuable hire in the imaginary world that he was constructing in his brain where somebody would consider him for a job in which he had no tactical experience. Not saying that he wouldn't have been good. He just didn't know how to vocalize any of it because he hadn't put any thought into it. But that sort of deliberate, intentional thought, what do I wanna do? Where do I wanna do it? Who do I wanna do it with? And what do I bring to the table that makes me a marketable or attractive hire? That sort of thought process transcends LinkedIn. It needs to be the foundational pillar of what you do on LinkedIn, but it transcends it. That's why LinkedIn is such an important foundational cornerstone because it inspires really niche down, intentional thought and then forces you to convey that in a marketable way. Man, I'm sorry I
Yeah.
got fired up all of a sudden.
No, absolutely,
I haven't
and
talked about LinkedIn in a long time. I get passionate.
yeah, no, but you're 100% spot on. I think a lot of service members, just in general, and this kind of goes into the LinkedIn piece, but it kind of transcends that is service members just don't know what they want to do.
Mm,
I mean, I will tell you right now, and this is kind of just the thing. And I know there are some on LinkedIn that aren't going to like this comment, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyways. We do project management. We all do project management. And
mm.
every service member thinks they can do project management when they separate from the military.
I
And I
was
will
the
tell
guy
you
did
right
that.
now, having done actual project management in the civilian industry, it is not for everyone. It
Well,
is
yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
we've all managed projects in the
Yep.
military, but there is a difference between a manager of projects, someone who manages projects, and a project manager.
Yes.
There's a difference.
A huge difference. And when you look at it, when I have conversations with service members, and the first thing they say when I ask the question of, what do you want to be when you separate from the military? They say, "Oh, I'm going to be a project manager." Okay, okay, awesome, good deal. Have you looked at project management materials to see if you're ready to scope out a project. They're like, well, I mean, I've done it before in the military. I'm like, cool. So you understand the cost of hiring someone, and you can adequately convey that in a project proposal. They're like, wait, what? And it's those hard questions that service members really just don't think about when they're transitioning, because we've been told all our military careers, hey, you do project management. This is what you can do in the outside world, and you'll get paid six figures to do it. Oh,
Yeah. People
that.
be lining up out the door and around the corner to throw six-figure jobs at m veterans
Absolutely.
who believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And you
And
should
it,
believe in yourself. I'm not like, I love the confidence when people are like, I can," and that's a great thing
yep.
about the military. And, like, do I believe that someone who doesn't have a PMP and doesn't know how to be a project manager, like the typical NCO, if put into a position where they have to become a real deal official project manager, 98% of the time, I know they will figure that out because that's what we're built to do. Military members are built to be thrown into situations and to figure it out and to get good and get smart really, really quick, right? So you don't have to convince me. You don't have to convince me that you can do it, whether you have the certification or the experience or not. Average NCO, average senior NCO, average first sergeant, average superintendent, like put them in anything and they will figure it out. And they'll get it done. But you don't have to convince me. You have to convince a civilian hiring manager who doesn't get it. They don't understand you.
Yeah.
And really, and more often than not, I'm sorry, but they have deep down in the dark recesses of their brain, they have prejudices and stereotypes about you and what you did in the military and what you bring to the table professionally. Doesn't matter what your resume looks like. So you almost have a double hard job. It is twice as important for you to sell what it is that you bring to the table and how you can accomplish the goals that your hiring manager is looking to accomplish. Because they'll say thanks for your service and then go blank
Mhm.
after that. And these are the same hiring managers, like, and I'm getting philosophical now, but when I was growing up, the common refrain was people only join the military because they're too dumb to go to college. Raise your hand if you've heard that one. If I had a dollar for every time I heard that growing up, those same kids, your peers from high school who said that, as misguided as it was, they're your hiring managers now. They're the civilian decision makers who may have a magnetic ribbon on their car, who may say that they appreciate you and your sacrifice, who may thank you for your service.
Hmm.
But in the back of their head, they still think that you weren't smart enough to go to college, and that's why you joined the military. And so you have an uphill battle, especially against peers who have had tactical experience in the industry that they're trying to fill a position for. So no, nobody's gonna give you a handout because 'cause you're in the military, but it's not an even playing field. You have more work to do, and it's 10 times as important for you to convey in your headline, in your about section, in your experience on your LinkedIn profile, how you can solve problems and accomplish things for people who want to solve problems by hiring.
Absolutely. And it
Fired up.
again, so many things to unpack out of that, that brief little conversation piece right there. And I think what it comes down to, and Bruce, I see you in the chat, and I think you kind of hit it right there on the head is, um, service members are transitioning out of the military every year, but we only make up a very small percentage of the U.S.
Mm,
population in
that's a good
total.
point.
Very small, even though we have thousands of service members transitioning every single year.
And
So,
it's
how do
the
you
sorry.
make yourself more attractive than
Yes.
your peers who stayed in college? Maybe you didn't go to college at all. Maybe you joined straight out of high school.
Yeah.
And they already have, like, to your point, Adam, they have 20 years of experience in the industry where you have 20 years of experience in the military.
Right.
How can you make yourself the best candidate when you have that huge difference? Now, I'm not saying the military doesn't provide you with the tools, right? We
Yeah.
as service members, we understand what we can bring to the table, but it's getting past that bias and getting past that hiring bias that is your hardest part. And how you do that is you have to showcase the best of you, but
Mm-hmm.
it needs to match the industry. And one of the things, and this is going to be one of the action items. So one of the action items that you can do is take a look to see what your peers are doing. Look at job requisitions. See
Mm.
what those jobs require you to have. See if you can translate your military experience into that job rec. Now, I will tell you, if you are in a trade type NEC or MOS, right? If you are in an industry that has a direct correlation, I'll just use IT because it's the easiest one. Plus, I come from that background. Anything you do IT in the military is going to have a direct correlation into the civilian sector.
Hmm.
But you have to be able to use the same words that civilians are using. Military uses a completely different set of terminology when it comes to IT because that makes sense to us and we fall under the Department of Defense. Civilians may not do that unless they're specifically a government contractor and they have to follow those same rules.
Hmm.
Civilians will do stuff way different than how military does it. But you have to be able to convey that same level of expertise that you have in the military to a civilian hiring manager and recruiter. But that's only part of the battle. The other part of the battle, and I will tell you, it is the networking piece. The networking piece is going to win over any day of the week. And so there's some great statistics that I like to use every single time I do these. 70%, 60 to 70% of all jobs that are filled in the US market today are filled through a network connection or
Mm.
in-house referral.
That's even higher than I would guess.
Yep.
And the best gigs too. Like that's more
Yeah,
subjective or more subjective. But like it's always helps to know a guy or gal who knows a guy or gal.
absolutely. Absolutely it is. Which means if you're trying to go out in this, and this is one thing I think service members kind of fall into a crevice and they're never able to get out is they think they just have to apply for jobs. And, to your
Mm.
point, Adam, there are people lining up around the door just waiting to hire you for that 6-figure job. So they just go and they build a resume because the
Mhm.
transition program tells them to build a
Tells you to
resume.
do it.
Yep.
And they all look like federal resumes too,
And they
because
all look like federal resumes.
the people who are running the show are federal employees who are doing a federal resume writing. Yeah, just don't get me started.
Absolutely. And then they just blanket apply.
Yeah.
And then they only apply for 3 or 4 jobs because they think, "Oh, those 3 or 4 companies, they want me. I know they want me because I've been told that they want me. So I only have to apply 3 or 4 positions and I'll be okay." And
You,
then they get stuck because their
you aren't
resume
kidding.
doesn't match what's needed based off the job requisition.
Mhm.
Their resume is probably built like a federal resume, or
Mhm.
it's such a plain vanilla template that it doesn't
Generic.
convey any type of information to the recruiter or
Mhm.
hiring manager. And then they get into this rut where they say, "Oh, well, I applied to the 4 jobs and I perfectly match that job." But your resume doesn't say that.
Well, and I mean, that's a really, really good point, and people may be like, "I thought we were talking about LinkedIn," but, like, this all goes hand in hand. Think of LinkedIn as the foundational pillar of all of your job search endeavors.
Yep.
Um, the resume stuff is spot on. I've had a ton if I had a dollar for every conversation I had with people, especially while I was working, like, more kind of, more frequently in helping people with their transition. If I had a dollar for every time I heard somebody say like, "Well, I've applied for 50 jobs and sent my resume to 50 people," And
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't heard back from anyone. Nobody wants to hire veterans. It's like, or 50, I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Like 50 resumes, and you didn't consider, like, maybe I'm approaching this in a less than optimal fashion, you know? Did you customize your resume and keyword optimize it for the job you're applying for? Because otherwise, you're not going to make it through a filter, through an applicant tracking filter. You're just not. If it's a big corporation, they're going to use an ATS to weed people out, and if you're not keyword optimized, you're done. Same goes for keyword optimization in certain industries when it comes to your LinkedIn profile. Recruiters find you based on keywords. All right. Did you go line by line in the job ad to see what it is that you align with? And if there's a close connection, fine. You got to be like C3PO in episode 4, A New Hope, selling himself to Owen. He's like, moisture evaporators. I know that language is very
Yeah.
similar to or whatever it was. You got to be C3PO. You got to sell yourself,
Yeah.
and really bridge that gap, make that connection. That's what people mean when they say translating skills. That's the C3PO analogy just came to me. I'm very proud of that one.
No, that's good. I love it. I love it. You're in good company right now.
Yeah,
And
oh, go ahead.
no, and it to tie it in, why are we talking about resumes, right? It's that networking piece, right?
Mm,
We talk about resumes here specifically to point the attention to you need to network. And how do you network? Well, you have to use LinkedIn. Well, in
mm.
order to use LinkedIn, you have to have a complete resume, or you have
And
to
if
have a
you're
complete LinkedIn profile. So
Mhm,
now we've gone full circle. All right, we've talked about LinkedIn. We've talked about how you use LinkedIn. Now this is why it's important to use it. You
oh,
set
yeah.
up all of that other stuff. You spend that time that's needed to build your
Mm,
profile to make sure that it looks good so you can really start networking with people
mm.
so you can get that in-house referral. So you can get that guy or gal that knows a guy or gal
I
in
mean,
the
look, it's
industry you
possible.
want to get into.
It's possible to get a job by submitting a resume.
It
To a
is.
it is
Absolutely.
possible to do it. I know people who have done it. I've never done it. I've applied for a lot. I mean, it's never happened. It
Mm,
depends on your industry. It is possible to just show up on LinkedIn, have a recruiter find you based on a few keywords, get offered a job, and you're good to go. It is possible. Very heavily industry dependent. It's possible.
yep.
Most people have the most success and getting the best opportunities by having a connection first. But the best opportunities for me have come after a connection has been made and somebody says, all right, well, send me your resume and we'll get this interview scheduled. Like, not resume forward, like human being forward. And LinkedIn is your best leverage point, your opportunity to be human being forward. Uh, should you put your resume as an attachment in your documents on your LinkedIn profile? Don't do that, because your resumes should be customized for each job you apply for. Putting a generic resume up on your LinkedIn profile doesn't help you. It doesn't help anybody else.
Well,
Um, and the question that I've gotten before that just popped into my head is, so if customizing a resume for each job that you want is best practices, and a generic resume is bad, should you be niching down that far on your profile itself? If
mm,
generic is bad in resume, is generic bad on LinkedIn profile? And this is why I say that there is a distinction between a resume and a LinkedIn profile. They're two different things. They have a lot of similarities. All right. And it's important that we niche down a little bit on LinkedIn. Your headline shouldn't be like, I'm a leader who leads people. I'm a seasoned leader with a proven history of whatever cliche fluff nonsense that people use.
yeah.
Um, you should niche down a little bit more than that. Um, but on your LinkedIn profile, you find a happy medium. You should be industry specific. You should be discipline specific. You should show people in certain industries, in certain disciplines, how you can solve problems and what you bring to the table and what sets you apart. All right. But are you completely niching down line by line? Maybe not that far. Like you would on a resume. Don't go that deep.
Right. And man, there's so many things to unpack, but so
Yeah.
little time left in the stream. We got about maybe 10 minutes, maybe.
Oh man.
Um, I
There's a
know,
lot of
right? Time
questions
flies
too.
when
I
you're
want to
having
know.
fun. I will tell you for the LinkedIn piece, when you're talking about how far down do you go into the rabbit hole when you talk about your experience, uh, I'm a huge data person. So
Hmm.
what I ended up doing was looking at all the different job recs that I was interested in. And then what I would do is I would take all of those requirements or must haves or you provide this to the company. I took all those items and essentially put them inside of an Excel database that I had built. And then I extrapolated all of the big key things that each one of those companies were looking for. So I had a sample size, I think I had a sample size of 40 different companies and about
Dang.
200 different requisitions. And I figured out, okay, these were the top 10 things that are required by every company across the board. Those are the things that I niche down to inside my LinkedIn
Hmm.
profile. And you can do the same. And this kind of goes for any industry, whether you are in IT, HR, project management, construction,
Hmm.
you can do the exact same thing. Take a look at those job recs, figure out what's the most similar to each one of them.
Hmm.
And if you have that skill on LinkedIn, all right, if you have that skill in your prior experience, then add it to LinkedIn. One of the best stories I have, and it's kind of a funny one. I gave this advice to a service member, and a service member went through his LinkedIn profile and put all of the 10 top things. So we followed the directions. He got an interview. Super awesome. When they asked him about his experience, he's like, oh, I don't have any of that experience. He
Oh
just
no.
put in the 10 top things.
Yeah, so that should be the number one caveat to everything. Like, to be honest
Be
about
honest with yourself too, all
yeah,
right?
yeah, really. Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh. So, hey, I know we only have a few minutes left. There's a couple
Mm,
things I want to make sure and hit on. So, you have a YouTube channel, right?
I do.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So the Thriving Veteran is the brand, where I basically I put all of my veteran, and transition information related content and military entertainment sort of content. I have a few MRE taste tests with civilians and whatnot that are fun and um, haven't it's been a few months since I put fresh content on there.
Mm,
Um, it's not over. It's just to kind of put that in context. I started a new position as the executive director of a nonprofit here in southeastern Wisconsin.
mm.
I started 6 months ago, and that has been anyone who's been the executive director of a nonprofit knows is a little bit. I've never been an executive director of a big old nonprofit before, but it's been great. I mean, it's I've been able to flex some leadership muscles, and we've had success, and I'm really excited about what the future brings. It's just that the kind of veteran supporting, veteran information, employment, and transition related stuff has taken a backseat to that. And so it's going to be more of a slow trickle, but I would encourage everyone to please look for the Thriving Veteran on YouTube. Please subscribe, give it a follow. I mean, all of the videos when it comes to transition stuff still have relevance. If the topic was not still timely, I would remove the video, but there's a lot of great information about not only career LinkedIn, but also lifestyle stuff. But yeah, check out Thriving Veteran on YouTube. Give it a sub if you would. And yeah, also my book, and there's that. And then yeah, if you ever have questions about anything, you connect with me on LinkedIn and just send me a message. If you connect with me on LinkedIn and you send me a pitch, I have gotten to the point where I just like type in all caps like boo, and then I disconnect right away. Like I'm so
Yep.
over it. If it's a military person, I may be like, hey, just so you know.
Just so you
Uh,
know.
yeah, just so you
I
know, this isn't
I
the way.
I do the same thing. I give a little grace for the military side of the
Mm,
house.
And
military spouse,
somebody trained them
veterans.
bad is the thing. Somebody told them that was the way to do it, and so
Yep,
it's important to be like, "Yeah, come on, man."
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, okay, so recap: LinkedIn, super important.
It's good.
Good.
LinkedIn is good.
You need to have a complete profile. Lots of resources that exist out in the world. The two that I'm going to highlight today are going to be Adam's book. It's right here. And a reminder, I'm giving away 4 of these, and all you need to do is message me on LinkedIn. And if you're not connected, even better. Send me a connection request and say, hey, I'd like a book. I'll do the giveaway or I'll do the random draw later today, and I'll make sure and send those out. Thriving Veteran. It's there. It exists. It's awesome. Make sure you check it out. The link is actually inside of the chat itself. And then, of course, the plug for Boots to Books. If you have not looked at that resource yet, you 100% need to. Boots to Books, we put together I wouldn't even say comprehensive. I would say that it is an overabundance of information about the military transition process. We have an entire masterclass course. It's got over, I believe, 140 videos now, ranging
Nice.
from financial success, financial preparation, military transition, IT, cyber, project management, HR. You can think about it. If you need it for your military transition, Boosted Books has a course for it. In fact, I believe that there's 6 specific courses that teach LinkedIn. Maybe someone put together and recorded for them. So
There you
those
have
are
it.
on there as well. All right. Closing comments. Adam, what do you got?
Oh, wow. We covered a lot of stuff. Well, I'm gonna steal a phrase from my buddy Herb Thompson. You gotta own your journey and own your transition
Oh, yeah.
journey. And whether you are a lot of people who would watch this are in the process of transitioning or recently transitioned. The right time to start with LinkedIn is yesterday. The right time to start thinking about your transition is yesterday. Um, I believe that transition preparation needs to be there at least needs to be computer-based training modules done from year 1 in people's first enlistment or commission. Um, something to get them thinking about it, because you will transit at some point. You will not be in the military anymore.
Yep.
Either you will pay the ultimate sacrifice or you will retire or separate. At some point, you're not going to be in the military anymore, and you have to prepare for all of those scenarios. Whether it be life insurance policies when you're young, for goodness sake, before you're 40 and retiring and have bad knees and back. So that scenario. And then, or if you're retiring, you need to think about, are you going to work after you retire? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Do you have the right certifications? Are you training yourself correctly? Or if you're separating after one enlistment, same thing. Is your financial world in order? Start preparing now. LinkedIn, foundational pillar of all of those things. You can do it too. Don't be intimidated. Approach it with an open mind. Seek out advice, take advice, but then also own your journey. Your approach is going to be different, and you're going to find success in your own way.
Absolutely. And you stole my quote from me. I was going to use the exact same one from Herb.
Sorry.
And that's
We'll
it.
have to tag him and
And
give
it
him a
just goes to
shout.
show
It's a
how
good one.
important it is.
It's
Right.
a good quote. And his book's good too.
Yeah,
A lot of great
his book's great too.
There are a lot of great people who are in this space who want to help.
Yes.
But there are a lot of you out there. So, and we don't know. Like,
We don't know. Yeah.
reach out to folks. Make a post on LinkedIn. I have a transition coming up and I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Please help.
Yep.
People will rush to your aid if you approach it with some humility and some grace and an open mind. People will bend over backwards to help you.
Yes. The last thing I'll close it off with is For those of you who are in the audience that have joined, one, we truly appreciate it. Both Adam, Boots to Books, myself, we've enjoyed having you here with us, but you're here with us right now. And there are, unfortunately, service members, military
Mhm.
spouses, veterans that just don't know to look for these types of resources. And it really comes down to getting the word out. The one thing I always do whenever I have transition classes with military bases, with commands, the first thing I do is say, you are so great for taking your transition and owning it, but there are 10 others that have no idea that
Mhm.
this is even a thing. And I
Yep.
give them each of them a charge. I tell them, hey, you need to go out and spread the word. I don't even care if you use my resource. As long as someone knows that there are resources out there,
Right.
that's the win. So if you're here today, that's awesome. We absolutely love it. Let your buddy know. Let
You
them
said
know
it.
that there's tons of things. There's books, there's courses, there's websites you can go to. There's people like Adam and I, Herb, Bruce, Michael Quinn. We're all out here trying to help and support veterans, but we
Mhm.
can only do so much for the people that are actually looking for that service. So,
And thanks for what you do. Thanks for what you do. You've been I mean, this is a great stream, and Boots to Books is awesome, and it's just like just being a constant voice, a positive voice, of good information. So thanks for all you do, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right. Well, hey, again, thank you everyone for joining the stream. Again, I would highly recommend you send me a message on LinkedIn for Adam's book. Again, I'm giving away 4 of those. Just send me a message. Make sure to check out The Thriving Veteran. Make sure to check out Boots to Books. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today and giving us an opportunity to speak with you. It's truly been a pleasure, Adam. Really appreciate it. And I hope everyone has an amazing rest of your day. Happy Monday and enjoy the week.
Thanks. Take care, everybody.